On a hillside outside Capernaum, 2,000 years ago, Jesus sat down with 12 men and shared a meal. Bread, fish, wild herbs, olive oil, honey on the side. Modern clinical research has now traced every single one of those foods to specific molecular mechanisms that slow aging, protect the brain, and lower cardiovascular risk. The Mediterranean diet, the only diet pattern in modern medicine with strong evidence for longevity, is essentially the gospel meal. Number 1 is the food Jesus ate on the morning after his resurrection. And modern science is just figuring out what was in that single bite. Number 5 was the bread only priests were allowed to touch, and the recipe is hiding in plain sight in Leviticus. 10 foods, the exact diet Jesus lived on. Let's get into it. Number 10, salt. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 13. Jesus tells his disciples, "Ye are the salt of the earth." Salt was a daily food preservative, healer, and currency in first-century Galilee. Roman soldiers were partially paid in salt, the origin of the word salary. Modern research distinguishes between processed table salt and unrefined sea salt. Real sea salt carries over 80 trace minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium, iron, zinc, that processed salt has been stripped of. Older adults on diuretics and blood pressure medications often have better outcomes with mineral-rich salt than with strict low-sodium diets. Unrefined sea salt, Redmond real salt, Celtic salt, or similar, daily, modest amounts. Avoid iodized table salt. Bleaching and anti-caking agents destroy the minerals that make salt medicinal. Number 9. Wild olives. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26. Jesus and his disciples went out to the Mount of Olives. The Garden of Gethsemane, meaning oil press, sat on its slopes. Jesus prayed there the night before his crucifixion, surrounded by olive trees. He ate the whole olive fruit constantly. The whole olive contains 5 times the polyphenols of pressed olive oil, oleorupine, hydroxytyrosol, and oleocanthal, concentrated in the skin and flesh that gets discarded when oil is pressed. The Predimed trial, with 7,447 participants, proved that the whole olive Mediterranean diet reduced major cardiovascular events by 30% in older adults. 6 to 8 whole cured olives daily, Kalamata, Castelvetrano, or other naturally cured varieties. Avoid lye-processed olives. The soaking strips the polyphenols. Number 8. Mustard seed. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verse 6. Jesus says, "If ye had faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye might say unto this sycamine tree, Be thou plucked up by the root." Mustard was a daily seasoning across first-century Galilee. Small, common, powerful. When mustard seed is crushed with water, an enzyme called myrosinase converts a compound called sinigrin into allyl isothiocyanate, AITC, the compound responsible for mustard's burn. Multiple lab studies show AITC triggers programmed cell death in cancer cell lines while leaving healthy cells intact. The compound that makes your eyes water activates a documented anti-cancer pathway. Cold ground mustard paste, not heat processed. Heat destroys the myrosinase enzyme. Cheap, cold-prepared mustard delivers far more medicine than heat-pasteurized brands. Number 7. Parched grain. The Book of Ruth, chapter 2, verse 14. Boaz invites Ruth into his barley field at lunch and says, "Come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar." Then he reaches her parched corn, lightly roasted whole grain. Jesus would have eaten parched grain during every spring harvest in Galilee. Lightly roasting whole grains over open fire partially caramelizes the starches, a process called dextrinization that slows their breakdown into glucose. The result is a lower glycemic index than raw or sprouted grains. Modern research shows parched grains produce blood sugar responses similar to oatmeal, but with longer satiety. Lightly toast whole barley or wheat berries in a dry skillet until aromatic. Eat with a splash of olive oil and a pinch of salt. The exact lunch Boaz served Ruth 3,000 years ago. Number 6. Eggs. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verse 12. Jesus asks, "Or if he shall ask an egg, will he offer him a scorpion?" He uses the egg as an example of basic, expected food a parent gives a child. Every household in first-century Galilee had chickens. Jesus ate eggs every day of his life. For 50 years, doctors told patients to avoid egg yolks for cholesterol. That advice was overturned in 2015 when the Dietary Guidelines for Americans removed dietary cholesterol from the list of nutrients of concern. Multiple large cohort studies have since shown that 1 to 2 whole eggs daily does not raise heart disease risk and may improve HDL profiles. The yolk contains choline, required for brain function. Choline deficiency contributes to cognitive decline and is widely deficient in older adults. The yolk is the medicine. Pasture-raised whole eggs, 1 to 2 daily. Avoid factory farm egg substitute products. Number 5. Bread of presence. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 4. Jesus defends his disciples for eating grain on the Sabbath by reminding the Pharisees how he entered into the house of God and did eat the shewbread, which was not lawful for him to eat. The bread of presence was 12 loaves baked weekly and placed in the holy place of the tabernacle. Leviticus chapter 24 gives the exact recipe. A bread that sat for 7 days at room temperature in a hot desert climate without spoiling required wild yeast fermentation. The recipe, fine flour, water, salt, and natural leaven, produced what we now call sourdough. Modern microbiome research shows that traditional long-fermented bread produces postbiotic compounds that survive baking and feed gut bacteria. The frankincense set beside the bread on the temple table likely served as a natural antifungal preservative. Gut microbiome diversity collapses sharply after 60. Long-fermented bread is one of the few foods studied to restore it. Truly long-fermented sourdough, 3 days or more, from whole ancient grain. Number 4. Cana wine. The Gospel of John, chapter 2. Jesus' first recorded miracle. At a wedding in Cana of Galilee, the wine ran out. His mother told him. He turned 6 stone water jars, 20 to 30 gallons each, into wine. The master of the feast tasted it and said, "Thou hast kept the good wine until now." Red grape wine contains resveratrol, a polyphenol concentrated in grape skins. In 2003, Harvard researcher David Sinclair published research showing resveratrol activates SIRT1, one of the 7 sirtuin enzymes that control cellular aging. Sirtuins regulate DNA repair, mitochondrial function, and the cellular stress response. The exact compound Jesus served at the Cana wedding is the most studied natural anti-aging molecule in modern medicine. One critical note: the research is about moderate consumption. 1 glass of red wine with a meal. Heavy drinking offsets every benefit. For non-drinkers or anyone on blood thinners, dark grape juice carries the same polyphenols. Talk to your doctor before adding wine. Number 3. Lamb. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26. Jesus celebrates the Passover meal with his disciples. The central food of Passover was the sacrificial lamb, commanded by God in Exodus chapter 12. "And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it." Jesus ate roasted lamb every Passover of his life. Grass-fed lamb has dramatically different compound profiles than factory-farmed meat. Conjugated linoleic acid, concentrated in pasture-raised ruminant fat, has been studied for body composition, insulin sensitivity, and inflammation in older adults. Lamb also contains CoQ10, taurine, and L-carnitine, precursors for mitochondrial energy production, which declines sharply after 40. Sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, doubles fall risk in older adults. Adequate complete protein is the most important intervention. Grass-fed lamb delivers more bioavailable protein per ounce than most modern protein sources. Pasture-raised grass-fed lamb, roasted simply with salt, olive oil, and herbs, the exact way Jesus would have eaten it. Number 2. St. Peter's fish. The Gospel of John, chapter 21. After the resurrection, the disciples have fished all night on the Sea of Galilee and caught nothing. Jesus calls from the shore, "Children, have ye any meat?" He tells them to cast their net on the right side. They pull in 153 fish. When they come ashore, Jesus has already started a charcoal fire with fish cooking on it. The Sea of Galilee's most common fish was Cerothorodon galileus, known today as St. Peter's fish. St. Peter's fish is a freshwater tilapia from a relatively clean body of water. It carries the omega-3 benefits of fatty fish without the mercury accumulation of large ocean predators. The Rotterdam study tracked thousands of older adults eating fish like this one to 2 times per week and found a 20 to 30% lower dementia risk over the study period. DHA omega-3 makes up 60% of brain dry weight. Dementia risk doubles every 5 years after 65. Small, fatty fish is the single most recommended food in dementia prevention research. Sardines, anchovies, wild salmon, mackerel, freshwater tilapia from clean sources, 2 to 3 times per week. Avoid large predatory ocean fish, tuna, swordfish, shark, for mercury. And now, number 1. The last food. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24. The morning after Jesus' resurrection, he appears to his disciples in Jerusalem. They are afraid. They cannot believe their eyes. He shows them his hands and feet. Still, they do not believe. So Jesus asks them, "Have ye here any meat?" And they give him a piece of broiled fish and a piece of honeycomb. And he takes it, and he eats it before them. This is the last recorded meal of Jesus on earth in the Gospels. Fish and honeycomb. His first miracle was wine for a wedding. His last meal was honey straight from the comb. Raw honey contains methyl glyoxal, concentrated highest in Manuka honey, with measurable antimicrobial activity against antibiotic-resistant bacterial strains in clinical lab studies. B. defensin 1, royal jelly traces, propolis, and pollen complete the medicine. But the comb itself, the beeswax, contains long-chain fatty acid esters with documented cardiovascular and lipid-modulating effects. Honey plus comb together is biochemically more complex than honey alone. The exact food Jesus ate the morning of his resurrection. Raw, unfiltered honey with the comb still intact. Chew the comb. Most honey sold today is heat pasteurized and filtered, stripped of the enzymes and compounds that make it medicinal. 10 foods Jesus ate. 3,000 years of accumulated wisdom. Modern molecular medicine is finally catching up to what Scripture had already named. Picture your kitchen 6 months from now. Unrefined sea salt in the cabinet, whole cured olives in the fridge, cold ground mustard, toasted whole barley, pasture-raised eggs, real long-fermented sourdough, a bottle of red wine, grass-fed lamb in the freezer, wild sardines, and a jar of raw honeycomb on the shelf. The exact diet Jesus lived on. But quality matters. Iodized table salt isn't real salt. Factory farm eggs aren't pasture-raised eggs. Filtered honey isn't raw honeycomb. Modern bread isn't ancient bread. Source carefully, and always talk to your doctor before changing your diet or your medications. Drop a comment. Which of the 10 foods are you adding first? I read every reply. Hit subscribe. There are more biblical pharmacies waiting to be opened. 2,000 years ago, Jesus broke bread, poured wine, ate fish on the shore, and chewed honeycomb the morning of his resurrection. Modern medicine spent the last 20 years trying to figure out why those foods worked. The answer was sitting in the Gospels the whole time.